Hello and welcome to Colred Plays Raid Shadow Legends. I am Colred. I hope you're doing well today. In today's video, we are going to be covering campaign farmers. So we're going to be primarily talking about how to get up to brutal campaign and how to farm that effectively. That's usually the first thing that you want to be able to do early in an account. So if you want to know how to build a campaign farmer or what champions to watch out for if you want to specialize a campaign farmer, we're going to talk about that today. We're going to talk about the options that you have in terms of builds. And we're just basically going to cover it. It's not a long subject, so it shouldn't be too painful to cover, but it can be a very valuable skill, especially if you're going to be starting a new account soon and you haven't done it in a while. You may want to refresh your memory about exactly what it takes early on in the game to be able to get up to brutal campaign. Okay, so let's start with the basics first. We want to get to 12-3 brutal campaign to farm the best combination of experience and silver. Remember that shields, which drop from stage 3, sell for a little bit more silver. So even though you could get a tiny bit more XP if you went all the way down here to stage 6, stage 3 generally is the most efficient place that you want to farm. And you can get here early in the game. You do not need a 6-star champion to be able to farm 12-3 brutal, but you do need to have the right build. Okay, here we are in 12-3 brutal, and the first thing we want to do is grab our starter champion and get going. Now I'm going to use Kale here as my starter champion. He's only at level 50, and you'll notice he does have a 2-star blessing on it. It is Phantom Touch, which will let him do a little bit more damage against one target, but that's basically not going to affect the runs at all, so you can disregard his blessing. We'll talk about his build and his stats in a minute. But I just wanted to show you that a level 50 starter champion can do 12-3 brutal without outrageous gear. You're going to need some decent gear on him. You're going to need a decent build on him. But I'm going to show you that this Kale is running with gear that you can probably put together in a relatively short amount of time. All right, I've thrown some food champions in with Kale so we don't waste experience. And let's go ahead and run this. Put it on auto and just let it go. You'll notice that he nukes out the first wave. He doesn't nuke out the second wave. Obviously, he only has one full AoE. He does have a 4-hitter, which is pretty good. His AoE will nuke out an entire wave, built the way he is. But he can take the damage, and as long as that bomb doesn't kill him, which it did not, we should have no problem. Now, this is a 20-second clear, which is decently fast for a starter champion at level 50, I would say. So now let's go ahead and take a look at his build. Okay, so here is our Kale. You can see I have a lifesteal set on him. I think that that's a pretty good idea for your starter champion, especially if you're going to use him as your damage dealer in Clan Boss. You do not need lifesteal for a campaign farmer. However, early on when you don't have quite enough power to nuke out the waves entirely, the lifesteal set's going to give you a lot of survivability, and it's going to basically, be like a security blanket. It's going to help you campaign farm effectively in brutal 12-3, even if you don't quite have perfect stats. But you'll notice I have an accuracy set on him. I do have some 6-star gear. This particular weapon's pretty good. It does have a lot of attack. But let's go ahead and look at the stats here. So as you can see here, the stats are decent, but not overwhelming. His attack is 2.6k. If you have a 6-star starter champion, you will be able to hit this number relatively easily. With a 5-star, you can probably shoot for somewhere around 2.2k, maybe 2.3k. If you can hit that threshold, you're probably going to be just fine. As far as the speed is concerned, only 170. We'll talk about speed more in just a moment. But 170 isn't super fast. You can definitely reach this speed threshold relatively early in the game. I do have close to 100% crit rate. I have 99% crit rate. 100 is a lot better. And his crit damage isn't overwhelming either. You can see he is at 152%, which is decent on a starter champion, especially at level 50. But again, this is a stat threshold I think most people couldn't reach relatively quickly in the game. His resistance and accuracy don't really matter. He does have a decent HP pool for a level 50 here, so that is why he's so survivable. His defense is not particularly significant. Now let's take a look at the masteries, and you can see he doesn't have a lot of masteries here. I did get the crit rate from Deadly Precision and the crit damage from Keen Strike. And then over here we have Heart of Glory, which is really good for a campaign farmer. Increased damage inflicted by 5% when attacking with full HP. So that first hit is going to hit a little bit harder. And if you have lifesteal, you're likely to have full HP a lot. So you're going to get a little bit of extra damage there. I went into the support tree here to get some accuracy for Kale, but that's primarily because he plays in clan boss or in dungeon fights against bosses. And so you might want accuracy on him for that. But really, I'm not going to build him past this point because I don't need to. But these would probably be the trees that you'd want to go down if Kayle is your starting champion. And again, you can see this Phantom Touch Blessing, which is giving him a little bit of extra attack. But as I said, that attack isn't really necessary for him to do his job, nor is the extra bonus damage from Phantom Touch. So if you don't have the blessing, that shouldn't be a problem. Okay, so I said we were going to talk about speed, and that is something that we do need to discuss here. The 170 speed on Kayle isn't a particular number that matters. Basically, you need to be going at about 105 speed, or you need to be going at double that, at about 210 speed. And so when you're building a campaign farmer, you have to decide, are you going to go for a slow build, which is basically geared towards a one-shot? You want a one-shot each wave. Or are you going for a fast build that will potentially two-shot each wave? The fast build that two shots each wave has more animation time, so it will be a little bit slower. But sometimes it's easier to reach the thresholds that you need in terms of damage with a two-shot build, especially if you're going to use that champion in other places. So for instance, if I'm going to put speed boots on my champion, like I've done here with Kayle, I'm naturally going to be moving towards a go 2 times kind of build, a double speed kind of build. If you don't want to do that, you could certainly drop these boots off and go for an attack percentage boot on Kayle, and then he's going to be a little bit slower, but he'll one-shot every wave. So you do have those two options, whether you want to go with a slow build or a fast build. So just to show that off, I have 2 other champions. These are 2 champions that you do want to look for. They are both excellent campaign farmers. The first one here is felhound. And if you look at his stats, you'll notice that I do have a bit more speed here. So we're up at 208, which is going to be just fast enough to go twice to the enemy's one turn. Now he is a champion that gets damage from both defense and attack. And so I have almost 4K total stats here on him, which is nice. Again, 100% crit rate and 167% crit damage. And nothing else really matters. The reason why felhound is so good is because he has an AoE on his A1. And so if he can just nuke out a wave with this A1, he can just repeat it over and over again and clear campaign very quickly. And since his animation is so fast, he is actually the fastest campaign farmer in the game normally. Not for me, but normally. And I'll show you why that's a problem for me in just a second. Okay, here we are back in 12.3. We've got felhound in the lead. And we are just going to run this. And you'll notice that he will take 2 turns to each turn that the enemy takes. But on this last wave, for whatever reason, his AI decides to make him use his A2 and his A3 instead of attacking when he could just nuke the wave out. This happens to me all the time. It happens to me on multiple accounts. And it doesn't seem to matter whether I build him for twice the speed or the 1 speed. Like if he one-shots or not, it doesn't seem to matter. I don't know if there's a particular stat threshold here. There's something about the Lord Shazar that throws him off a little bit, throws felhound off a little bit. But I've never quite been able to work it out. However, you can take over sort of the last attack here. So I'm just going to run it again. We're going to auto through round 2. And then here at the end, I'm going to take over and I'm just going to see there's something there about that. I don't know what that is, but there's something about that Lord Shazar that prevents felhound from two-shotting him. And so he goes into his defense. Now, that's also true for whatever reason when I build him as a one-shot campaign farmer, which I've done several times. So if any of you know what's going on there, please let me know, because it's been a riddle I haven't been able to wrap my head around for over a year. And so instead of using felhound, I normally just avoid him, and I, in fact, go with a different champion. However, you can see here, this guy's pretty fast. So what's the champion that I use as my campaign farmer? Well, it is Bellower. And Bellower is another rare, just like felhound. He's another void rare, and he's also very fast. Now, he has a similar reason for being fast in that his A1 is an AoE. But in this case, Bellower also has an AoE on his A2 and an AoE on his A3. So no matter which skill the AI decides to make him use, he's going to be hitting the whole wave. Now, this is my actual campaign farmer, so you can see his stats are a bit better. Again, he's a slow build. He doesn't need to be running at 2 times the enemy's speed because he's going to one-shot each wave. I do have a little bit of ignored defense here with a cruel set. I have an offense set and a perception set. The perception set is basically there because I sometimes use him in faction crypts, and he is also a debuffer, so that's pretty good. But again, you can see I have 100% crit rate. This time I have over 200% crit damage, 215%, and he is an attack-based champion. I have over 4,000 attack. Now, again, you don't need these stat thresholds in order to build a good campaign farmer. Clearly, my Kale didn't have these numbers, but when you do have these numbers, it just makes things go very smoothly. Okay, so here we've got Bellower, and we will just let him auto, and you'll see how fast he can run. One shot. One shot. One shot. And that is 6 seconds. Now, this is a plarium play 6 seconds, so if you are running this on mobile, it's usually about 7 seconds, not 6 seconds. And that means he's about 1 second slower than felhound when felhound works for you, which he's never done for me. So this is definitely my fastest campaign farmer for 12-3 Brutal. Now, in case you're wondering what other great campaign farmers are out there are a whole bunch. Basically, there are, I don't know, 100 champions that could probably be your campaign farmer. Of those, there's a select few who are also really good nightmare campaign farmers. So if you want to make your Brutal campaign farmer and your nightmare campaign farmer the same champion, you can. I'm not going to cover that in this video. I'll cover that in a separate video because building a nightmare campaign farmer is a bit more complicated. And it might be something that's pretty far away for most of you. But if you're looking for an epic who can do it, the best epic that I found for clearing Nightmare Campaign is actually also an amazing nuker, who I'm in the wrong faction for. Now, I've talked about this champion before. She's an excellent arena champion. And one of the really nice things is if you decide to build her as a go twice campaign farmer, so you want to go 2 times the speed, or you go pretty fast, she can actually also double as your arena nuker. You can do both with the same build. Okay. So obviously this is not true for just Brutal Campaign. If you build her to clear Brutal Campaign, she's going to farm that very quickly. But if you can build her even more strongly, she can farm Nightmare Campaign and still be a great arena nuker. In order to do that, her stat requirements are pretty high. You probably need between 5,500 and 6,000 attack and somewhere around 250 to 280 crit damage. So it is a lot of stats to try to collect on a champion. But if you can reach it, then she's going to be, great for all of this extra content for you. I can't forget the speed. Also, you're probably going to have to get her to around 220 speed. I think you can maybe do it with like 218, 217, something like that. But you're going to have to hit that speed threshold in addition to the 100% crit rate and all the crit damage and attack. Now, I don't actually have my Skull Crown built out as a campaign farmer. She is more of a Doom Tower wave clearer and support champion. She brings her debuffs. She brings an AoE weaken. She also brings a stun set for me, so I get stuns out of her. So she's not just built as a campaign farmer, but she can certainly do the job in Brutal, and I'm going to show you exactly how fast she is. But I did want you to see her stats here. So I'm looking at about 4,200 attack, 100% crit rate, 215% crit damage. So if I wanted her to be my Nightmare Campaign farmer, I would definitely need to up these stats, probably get her out of that stun set and maybe into a Savage set or something like that. But for Brutal Campaign, she's going to do just fine. And here we go. One shot. One shot. And one shot. And we're looking at 7 seconds. I've seen her do it in 6. I think her A2 animation, or maybe it's her A1 animation, can get hung up a little bit. But so definitely fast, not as fast as felhound, but probably in the vicinity of bellower. So an excellent campaign farmer in Brutal, and also an excellent campaign farmer in Nightmare if you can reach the stat threshold. Okay, I hope you've enjoyed this video, covering all the basics about campaign farming right from the early game into mid game and into late game. I will do another video on Nightmare campaign farming at a future date, I promise. But for right now, that is all for this video. I do want to remind you, if you have seen my previous video, or if you don't know about it, Sun Wukong is dropping on the 22nd of August. So that's just a few days time from when this video goes live. When that happens, my editor and I will be starting new free-to-play accounts in conjunction with that event. And we're going to be kind of having a friendly competition to see who can do better with their new account. Now, there's going to be some extra tweaks and maybe some rules. We're going to talk about that. We'll be releasing a video on that soon. because Sun has never played Raid Shadow Legends before, and obviously I've been playing for several years and I've played multiple accounts. So if you are interested in that video series, I suggest that you subscribe to the channel so you can get notifications when those videos go live. Also consider joining our Discord community, because we're going to be posting the rules in that Discord community about the competition here, the noob versus pro competition, as we're calling it. Also, we are going to be starting 2 new guilds, one for me and one for Sun. And so we're going to be looking for people to fill out those guilds as well. So if you are a newer player, or if you're willing to start a new account along with us, then come to the Discord, apply for one of the guild spots. We'll see how many people are interested. Maybe we'll make more than 2 guilds. I don't know. But yes, definitely come to the Discord and check it out, and we'll see what happens. All right. Thanks so much for joining me. I've had a lot of fun. I will see you in another video very soon.